And it's 8 o'clock, and so good to see you at the intersection this morning. I've noticed too lately that people are coming in later and later. I'm wondering if this is much like how people start to get used to gathering in congregations. And so knowing that there's announcements at the beginning, they know that they have this buffer zone. So what we're going to do this morning, a little bit different, is that we are going to, so James, this will involve you in this process, but we're going to do announcements at 8:25 because we've got important things happening, and I want to make sure more people hear those. And so we're going to jump into the conversation. James, can you stay with us until like 8:45? Do you have that capacity? If not, that's okay. James, are you there? There's Douglas Melnick.
I was muted. Yeah, thanks. I may have to jump onto another meeting at 9.
Oh, no. Just till 8:45. We'll definitely close then. Okay. So what we're going to do is take announcements at 8:25, kind of pause. And sometimes people leave at 8:30. I mean, we plan this for 8 to 8:30, so we get the meat of the content before 8:30. And then I want to be able to come back if we need to at 8:30 and have more conversation if we haven't had enough yet. Okay, so we're going to jump in. This morning, folks, we're going to be hearing about Resiliency Hubs. There is a term for you, like what does that even mean? And I want to introduce you to what I call my partner, our buddy over in emergency management. James, I can't tell you, so this is my thank you to you, how important you've been in terms of the work that we're doing. And you're just always there. You always respond when, we're trying to reach out to the faith community to get information out or to get volunteers. You just keep me on top of the things that we need to know during emergency management time. So thank you for being such a strong partner in that. So I'm going to hand it over to James from the emergency management and fire department. And he's got this QR code, man. You are like on top of this. So James is going to tell us about Resiliency Hubs in San Antonio, what they're about, how they work, how the city works with the hubs, and as well how congregations can work with the hubs and or become hubs themselves. So James, it's all yours.
Thanks, Ann. Thanks for that really nice introduction. It's our pleasure to always serve the community. And I'm really lucky that we have a great team at the Office of Emergency Management and great leadership. The San Antonio is a really great place to live. And so sometimes when I talk to people, I talk about all the stuff that keeps us up at night, but really we don't have an army of folks. We don't have a bunch of resources at our fingertips. All we have is influence and relationships. And so every chance that we have to build relationships with people, we'll take it. And you'll learn later that that is our strength in San Antonio, and especially in emergency management. When we need to get something done, we know the people who can get it done. We know the folks who we trust and we partner with on a day-to-day basis. And that's how we manage community-wide disasters. It's not from some secret army that we have, in our back pocket. It's really folks like yourselves. So whenever we need shelter space or volunteers or food or water, I can go on and on. We get that from people like yourselves and from the community. So thanks for being here and listening to this presentation. First, let me say,
James, that's also our strength in the faith community, relationships, and some influence. but that's how we operate as well. So we got a lot in common. Sorry
It,
to
it really,
interrupt.
no, that's okay. It really is. And, we meet on a regular basis with our critical partners in emergency management. And it really is just about relationships.
Mhm.
I think it's a national best practice that we have in San Antonio, that we meet on we have a formal monthly meeting with all of our partners. And we've been doing that for many, many years. And so when something happens, we're on a first name basis with our partners, and we just get things done. So it truly is a best practice, and I think we should keep doing that. What you see in front of you is a QR code. Feel free to scan that, and we'll follow up with an email with this link. What this is a quick survey. The city of San Antonio is doing a lot of surveys lately to get community input, and so you may have a question here on the presentation, and I think Ashley with our office is on the call. Her and I will take a note, but if you really want to add to the report and to what's going to go before leadership, take the survey and add any comments or suggestions that you might have once we finish this presentation. It's a short presentation, so we made it that way so that we can fit this 30-minute window. And so I'll leave that up there for a second. And again, I just want to thank everyone for being on. We've been doing this for about a month now, going out into the community and talking about resiliency hubs. And so when you think about what a resilience hub is, I want to take you back to Winter Storm Uri and a lot of the lessons learned that we've got from that event. And I'll talk to you about some current events and trends that will lead into why we think resilience hubs are going to be an important part of the community. And I really feel that they're going to be a crown jewel of our communities, something we can really be proud of. First, I'll say that we've been asked to do more and more community and personal preparedness. And that is just getting out into the community and talking to people about what they can do during the disaster. We've certainly looked at vulnerable populations and preparedness, and we've got vulnerable populations in our community that we really need to focus attention on, because as you know, the most vulnerable of our community suffer the greatest during emergencies and disasters. And so Ashley is actually on board full time to plan for people with disabilities and vulnerable populations. And this is the first time that we've ever had a full-time person on board to do that kind of work. So, we're going to continue that effort. Severe weather and severe heat is up there simply to remind everyone that we have severe weather in San Antonio. We are currently in a pretty serious heat wave. And in the past, we've always thought, we're from San Antonio, we can handle it. But it has really been really taxing on the community. Our CPS energy bills, our vulnerable populations, our elderly. So we've worked really hard to get the message out that people should stay cool this summer. We've also got a heightened awareness after the Uvalde situation to continue looking at our active threat and response and recovery planning. So, we certainly have had plans in place to respond to active shooter and active threats, but even more so now, we've had to start really focusing on how we would respond to a situation like that. And that's a whole nother 2-hour presentation. And then finally, resiliency planning and cascading events. Back to Winter Storm Uri. It happened. We all suffered, through that situation, and we all learned a lot. And so, in particular, what did the city learn from that? We learned that communication is important. We learned that when utilities go down, there's a cascading situation that happens from losing power to losing water to a human suffering, human emergencies. And it goes on and on and on. Sheltering, transportation. And so we've planned cascading events for a long time, but this was really our truly first cascading situation that almost never ended. It just kept going and going. We learned quite a bit from that, and we're still working on those lessons learned. Um, the things that we have to deal with in San Antonio, there you go. This is when the presentation gets a little dark, but I can tell you, we've got a little bit of everything in San Antonio. So lucky us, but overall, again, it's a very safe place to live. Some of these issues we have regularly, some of them not very often at all. So I just wanted to give you a basic idea of some of the things that keep us up at night. So let's get into what a resilience hub is. And then I'll show you the 4 locations that we've initially looked at, and then what we're doing and what our plan is. A resilience hub is nothing more than a familiar and trusted location, something that already serves the community, that can support people and bring value to the community. Our idea is that we would use these hubs to simply coordinate resources and distribution before, during, and after an emergency. As you can see, some of these places that are trusted and familiar places, they're all over the community. So that's why we're doing community input. We may choose to use city facilities, but at the end of the day, the community is going to tell us what the best places are. And this is a long-term plan, but I think we're on the right track. We would use these facilities to serve in 3 different modes. First of all, we would use them 99% of the time just as they are, whether it's a church, a school, a community center, a senior center. And then when a disaster happens, we would flip the switch, and it would become that resiliency center and recovery center. In the past, we've opened recovery centers in the community after we've had a presidentially declared disaster. It's a little challenging to find a location just to set up a recovery center. We believe that once we have resilience hubs up and running, we would already have recovery and information flowing throughout the community. So if you may already be thinking, what would be a great resilience hub in the community, and what would we do there? Here's a list of basic things that we would expect from resiliency hubs. So basic needs, food and water and supplies. Obviously, we would need power to those resilience hubs. And so the amount of funding that we've been given this year essentially support backup power or generator power to 4 locations. We've gone back and forth on whether or not, they'd be permanent generators or mobile generators, or we would rent some, but we would definitely need power for Resilience Hub to operate. So we already have heating and cooling centers throughout the community, and so this concept, I think, will just continue. They could serve as shelter during severe weather. We've had some small-scale tornadoes that have destroyed fences and roofs, and so these are places where people can find respite and then continue to seek information and resources. If you have teens like I do, they only care about one thing, and that is power to their devices. But we too have needs to. Yeah, I see some thumbs up. We adults too have needs for power, and so if we're remote working or if we're doing any kind of work on our computer or devices, then we can go to these centers and they'll be equipped to help us charge up safely. There are already going to be community meeting locations and be equipped with Wi-Fi and distribution of emergency resources. Now, I'll tell you, we can go on and on and on about what else we can provide at resilience centers. We've already had meetings with the disability communities. We've got a disability task force, and they've given us a ton of really innovative, critical ideas on things we can bring to our resilience centers. And so I really appreciated having folks like that who can give us the the straight and honest on what would be needed there. I'd like for you to also think about what we can provide. Someone said the other day, make sure you have enough toilet paper, and uh, I I totally agree. I hadn't thought about toilet paper for a while, and then when he said that, I said, you know what, we're gonna make sure that we've got a couple of pallets of toilet paper in there, because we're still a little traumatized by that situation. So start thinking about it. This is the mock-up, and at the end of the day, this is just a great looking facility. But when I mentioned that this could be a crown jewel of the community, this is kind of what we envision. So over here, we've got power generators. The facility should be walkable. You should be able to ride your bike to it, or take a public transportation. All of the facilities that we've identified are along easy bus routes. Uh, they the community leaders really like the idea of a green space and community gardens. So, that is something that we could build up to. And if you look up here to the top, even solar power and backup to our generators. So these ideas are common throughout what we've learned as nationally our best practices. And so, this is the gold standard. And so I'll show you that we have identified 4 locations in the city already that we think would make excellent resilience hubs. Southside Lions on the southeast side, and Norm Oil on the near west side, senior center. The Northeast Senior Center in District 10 is a great location, as is Garza Community Center over in District 5. These 4 locations have met all the criteria that we've laid out. There may be other criteria that we could look at, but we essentially looked at location, parking needs to be ample. These are all 300-person capacity. Southside Lions and several other of these senior centers actually feed 100 to 200 seniors every day through Meals on Wheels. So that's the kind of built-in infrastructure that we're looking for to be able to stand up these hubs. We've also looked at the routes, bus routes, whether or not they're walkable, rideable. They have Wi-Fi. Refrigeration is a pretty big deal. I set up a shelter after the Wedgwood fire over in Castle Hills several years ago, and the amount of medication that we took out of that building that was critical and in some cases life-saving would amaze you. We had a small school cafeteria full of medication for people in black trash bags. We had to bring out a pharmacist to come out and kind of go through those and make sure that people were getting those. So, if we expected the community to use these centers, we would have to be ready for that. So we'd have to have refrigeration and storage space. And so these 4 locations are our start to what we think could be a really, really interesting concept. Our goals here, and then I'll close up here in a second and take any questions. I don't see that there's so we're doing community outreach now. And as I said, our leadership is really, really interested in hearing from the community. So we've done a lot of these presentations out already in the districts and at HOAs. And I'll take this opportunity to say that if you are a representative of an organization that would like us to speak about resilience hubs, we can go out into the community and continue to do this for you. If you're an HOA president or an organization, you manage an organization, let me know, and myself or some of our staff will make that next meeting and talk about hubs and preparedness and a lot of other stuff that we've got going on.
James, can we put an email into chat on how they can connect to make that happen?
Sure.
Yours or somebody else's?
Yeah, I'll throw something in there in just a second. Yeah, we definitely will do that. So we're doing outreach now, getting community input, and then identifying future Resilience Hub sites uh, as a plan to have at least 4 open and available by the winter. November, I've looked at this November point for a while, and I think I'm going to change that to just winter. November's a little early. It's still kind of warm, but we'll definitely plan on having some of these open by winter. And my information is right there at the end there. It's James.Mendoza at sanantonio.gov. I'm easy to get a hold of, easy to find. I've tried hiding before and it doesn't work, and keeps finding me. She knows where I work. It's a big building on the south side. It's called the Emergency Operations Center, and it's hard to hide. So that is my quick pitch. What I'll do is I'll go back to the survey and leave that up while I address any comments or questions. We've got a little bit of time.
Yes, we do. I have a couple, and then others can start asking. I even encourage people, if you want to take this survey while you're listening, that's not a bad thing. That'll just get that information into James faster. James, so if a congregation or organization wanted to do this, how does the city, I mean, you start to listen to it in terms of wanting to set up the hub, from that viewpoint, and you think, well, there's some stuff there, like how are we going to make that happen? So what's the city's partnership with an organization or a congregation in terms of setting up a resiliency hub?
Right. So we haven't identified other locations yet, but we have had some comments in our survey that people have some great ideas. So there's definitely locations out there that people trust and are familiar with. I think the next step would be to close out the community engagement portion of this project, and then catalog any of the ideas or any of the additional locations that people may come up with. And then I'll take that catalog of facilities, take it to city leadership, and then begin the same evaluation that we conducted on these 4 that we've selected.
But the question I'm asking, James, is much more hands-on, my question. So when, if there's somebody out there, these things that you've listed, it has to have energy, it has to have water. How will the city help potential hubs in terms of physically setting up? Is there something there that the city is doing?
I don't think we're there yet. I think this process needs to play out, and then we'll be able to engage, I think, with other locations. But I don't feel that we're there quite yet.
Okay. I do want to mention that there are at least 2 people, and I'm going to call on them real quick here. Justin Lindstrom and also Dr. Keely Petty, who are with us this morning. And they're looking and wanting to potentially be resiliency hubs. Justin, did you want to say anything about that and why? Or Keely, one of you want to jump in?
Good morning, everybody. Oh my God. I was at a meeting downtown, a crime prevention meeting, heard about these resilience hubs. I'm sorry, I'm Dr. Keely with Kickstart Your Life, but let me tell you, I hit Ann up with an email. I said this would be the perfect hand to hold in building self-healing and compassionate communities. So I've already had a visitation at the building. I just heard some more PowerPoints because I gave them PowerPoints as to why Bethel would be a great fit. They said, we know of your work in the city, yada, yada, yada. The facility is perfect. So because District 2 does not have a healing hub and our location is within the White House Initiative Promise Choice neighborhood. Again, I am going to go and shout it from the rooftops that our location should be the 5th location so that we can mobilize compassion, self-healing communities, and uplift the human spirit together.
Thanks, Keely. This is so exciting. It makes me too to think about, I'll get it out of my mouth here, but the work we've been doing with Bridges to Care. And getting cohorts in every district so that it's a lot closer, if not more than one, right? Justin, you want to add something to this?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up Bridges to Care. That's how we are kind of looking at this, is how our Bridges to Care cohort could be a resiliency hub, maybe in multiple locations within our area, or one location with multiple congregations working it and making sure that it's staffed correctly and that kind of thing when we're called upon. So we're looking at it from the cohort point of view and from the Bridges to Care point of view, but very early on in the stages of that development. But we're looking forward to what we might be able to do.
Okay, so I encourage everybody, if you have, and I've seen a couple of them, and I've already contacted you in chat and said, tell James directly if you have locations or thoughts or ideas, and we're going to keep talking, but to make sure that you feel like you've at least been heard, send James an email and start that conversation if you have.
And Tom brought up in the chat about smaller hubs, and I think that's Tom, really what we're looking at as doing a hub through a cohort. It would share the load, and rather than it being one big entity, it would be smaller entities coming together to really serve the community. So I think you're right on in that regard. We've got to have multiple ways of looking at this.
All righty, we're going to take a pause here. We're going to come back, but at 8:27 for those who might need to leave, and then we're going to come back into conversation. But those who might have been late to come, we're going to do a moment of quick announcements. And so let's see, quick announcements. We really need some committed, background checked volunteers for this next month at the Migrant Resource Center. I sent that out with our notification for today. This is a very serious request. 5 to 10 people for the next month would make all the difference. There's a plan, but it takes a time to get the plan all figured out. Again, 5 to 10 committed volunteers for the next month who already have background checks. If you speak Spanish, that would be really great as well. So just email me if you have an idea or someone to volunteer. Doug, do you want to say something quickly about Pathways to Hope?
Yeah, Pathways to Hope, August 26th and 27th. I put the link in the chat at the beginning of this session. 2-day conference, free CEUs, free registration, outstanding speakers, great workshops. Come on out.
It's just the best conference, and we are in a position of where the entire community, where we have collectively been impacted by the pandemic, and James mentioning Snowvid, or whatever we call that, Snowmageddon last year, Uvalde, those things have been happening. This entire Pathways to Hope conference is on community healing. How do we do this as a community? And for Pathways specifically in terms of mental health, but how do we do that? Some great speakers. So that's at no cost to anyone who attends.
And live at the Tobin this year.
Mm-hmm. The one thing that I wanted to mention, there is one other thing. There is a collaborative among us. We call it the Sane Society Collaborative. We also drop the E sometimes and call it the San Society, like San Antonio. But in response to Uvalde and and these kinds of things. And so if you're interested in that, Paul Furukawa, Paul, would you put your email in chat? You could contact him. Since Uvalde, I know that Cops Metro and ICANN have picked up gun violence and working with that. And so Paul can connect you if you don't already have connections. I think Lizzie is on here. And if Lizzie, if you're listening to that, if you would put your email into chat, if people want to be directly connected with the work that's being done in terms of gun violence. That's really important work among our community. So at 8:30, we're going to go back to our conversation on resiliency centers. So I know somebody else had a question before I kind of compassionately, calmly kind of cut them off. So any questions out there or thoughts? Justin, did you want to say more, or did I bring the conversation to a total halt, but didn't mean
And
to?
this is James.
Hey,
Can you still
James.
hear me?
Yes, we
So-
can.
Okay, so two things. I've spoken with Dr. Healy, or at least I've sent her an email, and I really appreciate that energy that she brings to this conversation. It's places like the places that she mentioned that we really want to hear from. And I hate to continue to push the survey, but share your thoughts through that survey so that we have it documented, so that we can produce our final report and then take it to our city leadership and then show them, like, these are some of the other ideas that we have. We can continue conversations on identifying these locations. I know there's several out there. I know actually some of you are already Resilience Hubs. But if you share that information with us through that survey, that I would really, that would help to kind of codify, these ideas. And I will also, the second thing is that at some point I'll share the criteria that we used to identify those. If I may, the idea of bringing generators into some of these older buildings has given us some challenges. You can't bring in a new generator into an old building without doing some retrofitting. So, we could share some of those lessons learned if anybody was interested. Thanks for that. And again, thanks for bringing that positive energy to this conversation. I really appreciate it.
Mhm. We really need these. I mean, we all know that because we all lived through Stovit and what that was like. And if we had been better prepared, but that's the point. And one of the things that I'm really proud of in our city and being able to sit within the structure for these last 5 years is how much we have been evolving in terms of emergency management and stepping up. Right, we don't have it all together, right? But I'm just so proud of the folks who are working on that and kind of stepping up to strengthen the process and just keep doing that, continually looking, how can we be better at it? How can we, work together more on that? I also noticed that Douglas Melnick, our Chief Sustainability Officer with the city, was on. Doug, are you
I'm
still
here.
with us? Did you want to add anything to all of this?
No. I just want to thank you all for your interest. Thank James for his leadership. It's a great opportunity. And as we all know, it's needed. Things aren't going to get better when we start looking at climate and weather. And so the idea of a network, whether it's city-led or grassroots, is essential. So whatever I can do to help, I'm here. But again, I just want to thank you, Ann, for your leadership, and James for really taking this on. This is a big job, and thank all of you for your willingness to dig in, because this is all about our community, and particularly those who during these events or just on day-to-day sustainability rely on places like this. So just want to thank you all for your help.
I'm going to
Thanks,
put you on
Doug.
the spot, Doug.
Okay, great.
You love that, right? But the resiliency hubs, as you say, are like day to day, but really are important for those more heated or more chilling times, depending on what that might mean. But so responsive, they're there, available. What would you say is the number one, and I'll even give you three, number 1 to 3 most important things that all of us could be doing, and then we could get that out to our community, that we could be doing in terms of, I don't even want to say intervention. It's not even prevention, but this cycle that we're in terms of our climate. What are the most important things that we could do to help?
So number one is engage with, well, one, continue doing what you're doing, right? But one, engage with your council members. I think that's, let them know that addressing climate is a priority, and that you want to see action, because that really, at the end of the day, those are the folks who are really giving direction to me and to James and every, what do they want us to focus on, because there's so much need in this community. So they need to hear that it's a priority. The second thing I would say, and again, one of the things that's really interesting about climate is whose responsibility is it? And you hear different things from different perspectives. I hear those folks who say this really isn't about individual responsibility. Like, how is an individual really supposed to help address climate? This is about industry and corporations and federal leadership, which I agree. So again, I think it's engaging in political discourse as much as you can, up, as well as, but the individual choices do matter. The number one thing that I've been reading about lately is our choices of diet, and that's a really, really difficult thing. It's we are eating meat products is really carbon intensive, and so shifting your diet as much as you can, looking at your mobility choices, and I'll be the first one to say is it's easier said than done. I live right downtown, and I'll jump in my car sometimes to drive to work, and so I think it's just being cognizant of it. But I really think the third thing I'll say, and then I'll be quiet, is having conversations with your neighbors, getting involved with your neighborhood associations. This is all about community. This is all about realizing we're all in this together, and it's about collective action, because at the end of the day, we're all overwhelmed. When you just look at this summer, or when I was looking at the news and they put up the image of the last 2 months, and it was all red because we had like almost every day was 100 degrees. You think, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? So I think it's just keeping this conversation going and realizing that the answers are there. The technology is there. This isn't something that we can't address. It's just, how do we organize and how do we communicate our willingness to engage and to take action. And I think once that message keeps percolating up, there's strength in that communal voice.
I'm going to add a fourth one to it, James. And this one is a surprise to me, but should be no surprise to any of us. Ask our children what we need to do. So they're getting stuff in school and information that's so good and valuable and smart. And, ask your children, ask your grandchildren. I got a 5-year-old who went to pre-K last year, who has taught what I can do at the age of 4. And, and a direct question, how can we help? And they know that some of those answers. And so let them lead us for their sake, right? For their sake. So I add that. We're at 8:39. Do we have any more comments? There is one. Oh, there's a question for Virginia. Do you know if there's a similar
Anne-Marie
plan?
has a question as well.
Okay. Virginia's, do you know if there's a similar plan available? I assume Resiliency Hub plans for county residents who may not live near a city hub. Do you know about anything like that, James or Douglas?
I do not, but yesterday I spoke with the South Central Texas Emergency Management Association. That was a regional organization, and I pitched the idea of resilience hubs, and everyone seemed to like it. And I told them, get ready. I told them this is going to happen, whether it's in your small community or in the city. Bear County was at that meeting, and they were largely in agreement. They go, you know, it's a great idea. Either you're already doing it, you already know. And I forget the county that spoke up, but one county said, you know what, there's one location in my county that it was a rodeo type of arena situation, and he said, absolutely, that's going to be our resiliency hub, because everyone in my county goes there for everything. They go there to meet, they go there to hang out, they go there to, you know, to do rodeo stuff. So, you know, you introduce the idea to some of these counties, and they go, of course, it's going to be the Uvalde Civic Center, or it's going to be, you know, the Bandera this, or so. So they already know. I don't know that they're as you know, already down the path as we are, but perhaps this is something that you know, we're a part of a resilience hub cohort nationally, and maybe it's something we can do regionally. Once we get going on ours, we can become, I hate saying this because it's just another job we got to do, but it's maybe we can become the subject matter experts for our region in South Texas, and then start you know, start the process.
Yeah, I would think too, following Douglas is number one, that folks in those situations should talk to their county commissioners about this, just like talking to the council person. So to do that. So Anne Marie, let's jump to you at 8:42.
So this is a question or a comment for Douglas Melnick, and please don't shoot the messenger. But I'm wondering why it is, or I've received many comments when I'm having these conversations. I've had comments from neighbors and area residents that the city's buildings are like freezing like meat lockers in the middle of the summer when we're being asked to conserve energy and we're all, you know, dying of the heat. So can you comment on why that is?
Yeah, so and my office, one of our responsibilities is we manage a fund that's basically investing our city facilities to make sure that they're as efficient as possible and that we're driving energy down. And so I think I'm in agreement when I walk into a building and it's 68 degrees, that's counter to my department's mission. So I think the big thing that we have accomplished was after it was on our work plan for quite some time, but after the winter storm last year, we worked with all of our departments to develop an energy policy that clearly says these are your thermostat set points during a an ERCOT emergency. This is what it needs to be adjusted to, and we're tracking that. What you'll see in some of our buildings, what our building and equipment services department has been doing is, particularly for some of our larger, more public facilities, they sort of pre-cool the buildings overnight. So like I walked into City Tower today, and it started at 71 degrees, but over the day, as it starts getting to the hotter part of the day, it creeps up to 78 degrees. So our building equipment services department has a plan in place. The other thing you may notice is, depending upon the facility type, there's exemptions. Our libraries tend to be a little cooler than some of other buildings because they're more sort of social gathering places, and we may have more vulnerable residents go there just to cool. So not every facility is the same, but what I'll say is the conversation's not over. I think we're still working with departments on that. And another part of it is a technology issue. Not all of our buildings have central control where we can see what's going on with them. So it's a constant going back and forth with departments, making sure that their thermostats aren't being reset and toyed with. So it's it's something we're well aware of, and quite frankly, it drives us crazy sometimes, because we want to make sure that, you know, again, if we're asking residents to do their part and businesses, we need to be doing our part. So it's a high priority, but I think we're still working through a little bit of we're getting there, but it doesn't help anyone at the end of the day if our buildings are too cold than they need to be.
And just a follow-up question, thank you for that. I wrote it down and I'll share that with folks. Does the city have a plan to equip residents with solar by chance?
So we don't. I know CPS is rolling out a new STEP program. I don't believe solar's in there, but what I will say is one of the things my department is talking about hosting sometime in the near future is a sort of a listening session, because we have if I'm sure you're all aware, there's the big federal infrastructure investment that's coming down, and we're fairly certain that there's going to be funding available that might be able to be programmed for something like that. It'll all be competitive. There's no direct allocation, but I think we're going to want to start having some conversations with community members around priorities that will help guide us as far as, okay, what sort of programs are our community members looking for? And then that can really help us figure out what do we want to pitch to the federal government. So at this point, no, but I think there's a door that we can open to start having those conversations, whether it's solar, whether it's more funding for efficiency, whether it's more money for Resilience Hubs. So I think we need to have more conversations around that.
One last question.
Of oil. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne Marie. Sorry. Beverly.
Well, good morning, everyone. And thank you, sir. I guess this goes to you, Mr. Melnick. Two things. Please consider L. Austin for Resilience Hub. I know you've heard this. I mean, lots of people have said this and speak up. And in our town hall meeting that we had here was the largest attended. That was both our city manager and Ms. Villa Gomez heard, you know, the real need because it is where it's situated and the fact that it has just been a go-to place for over 140 years. So we hope that you all will consider that. And then my second question to you all is, are you all moving much more to a centralized approach in terms of maintenance of facilities? I sat on the facilities committee for the bond election. And one of the things we found out is that they're separate, different departments have different maintenance. And what we found is that if a facilities might need help, but if it's not in the right department, you could have 10 people over in one department doing nothing, 7 people in another department who are absolutely packed and jammed, and yet the 10 people would not ever end up helping the 7 people. So I was just asking, we talked about a real centralized, we talked about the need for a centralized facilities plan, well, first of all, a facilities plan, period, because we didn't realize that the city of San Antonio didn't have one, but then also a centralized maintenance department so that all of the buildings could be kept up, because that was a huge thing that when us as taxpayers saw so many of the city buildings were in such disrepair.
Yeah.
And so I know you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I'll start with the first one again. I'll just sort of mimic what James had said. That survey, highlight that facility, because I think that's the key, is building off of those locations in the community that are already those places. And so I think that's again, just weigh in on the survey, as well as again talking to your neighbors and have them weigh in as well, because I think it's clearly, like I said, if there's a center already that has that, we should look at that. We in terms of our facilities, the city's building and equipment services department is basically responsible for all of our facility maintenance. So they do have a plan in place, but I hear you. It's there needs to be better coordination between all those departments. I think a lot of times it does come down to a capacity issue that I think if we were to ask Building Equipment Services, their first response is we need more people to basically help manage all these facilities. But thank you for that comment. You know, I'll circle back with the Director of Building and Equipment Services and just sort of let him know that we got this feedback from you and see what his thoughts are. But we do, you know, we want to be as efficient with our resources. One, not only because it's the right thing to do, but because it's also about it's all about costs and savings. And when we, you know, the city's energy bill is going up just like everybody else's, and we need to be as thrifty as possible. So I'll check on that, and then I can follow up with Ann with some information once I hear back.
Well, and please know that one of the things on the committee, we had over 40-something people on the committee, we unanimously voted to be able to use bond funding to help you all with actually your capacity needs in terms of hiring new employees and those kinds of things. So please know that you had the support of the public, of the people from around. They were from every single council district and mayor appointees. We were all in favor of strengthening you all's capacity. Just wanted you to know that.
Well, I appreciate that. I'd love to follow up and hear more about what you guys were discussing.
And we have also seriously looked at Ella Austin Community Center, and we love that building. We love the location. So thanks for sharing that. And there are some other good ideas that people have shared in the chat. These are great ideas. Thanks for letting us speak with you today. Keep the ideas coming and take the survey. And I'd love to come back and talk to you all again. You know, get the juices flowing and the good ideas and send them to me. And then, you know, hopefully we'll have this conversation again soon. And we can't hear you. You're on mute.
Thank you, James. And compassionate respect for everybody's valuable time. Oh, this has been great. We went way over what we normally do. So thank you for being community and helping to heal as a community as well. Thank you, James, for being with us. Thank you, Douglas. You're like kind of the surprise, what are the cameo? You're the cameo this morning. Matt Damon is in the new Thor and is hysterical. Anyway, thank you for being with us. Everybody have great weekends. This next Thursday, we're going to be talking about immigration, our collaborative work there. Couldn't be better timing with what's going on. So we'll see you next Thursday at the intersection. Have great weekends.